All right, so now welcome to project number 8, and this is about number range analyzer. Now the objective for this project is to analyze numbers to find the sum, to find the minimum, the maximum, and then the sum. So now the project overview is that the user enters numbers. So the user keeps entering numbers, pressing enter, enter number, press enter. So once the user decides to enter a particular word to end or to show that I'm done entering my numbers, now the program takes these numbers, analyze them, and then display the results. So it's going to display the minimum, the maximum, and sum of those numbers that were entered by the user. Now the real life connection here is like in data analysis. So you put numbers together, you'll be able to find the minimum, the maximum, and then the sum. Also for reporting and also statistics. Now the concept we're going to be using here is going to be lists. Since we are going to allow user to keep entering values, we need to store those values somewhere. And variable can only store one value. So the only way to store multiple value is using lists. So that is why we need the concept of list here. So it's something we've already learned. If you haven't done that, go back to that lesson, learn about lists before you come back for this project. Now we need loops, especially the while loop, keep asking the user to enter numbers until they decide to stop. Then we also need the input function to prompt the users to give us or to enter those numbers. And we're going to be using the following functions: the min function to get the minimum of those numbers, series of numbers, then the max function to return the maximum number among them, then the sum function to combine the numbers, add them, and then give us the results. So the program flow is going to be at the start of the program, the user is going to be prompted to input numbers. So the user enter, let's say 8, press enter, 9, press enter, 12, press enter, 2, press enter, 5, press enter, 25, press enter. Then the user enters something like done, meaning I'm done entering the numbers. So once the user enters done and press enter again, now the program is going to combine these numbers. Probably we can display them first as suggested by one of the students. After displaying them, we then display the minimum among them, the maximum among them, and then the sum of all the numbers. So now the goal is to find minimum, maximum, and total of all the numbers that were displayed or that were entered by the user. So now let's get started. So now first thing first, since we would want users to keep entering numbers so that we can store those numbers, we need lists to be able to store multiple values. So with that, we're going to declare an empty list. So we say numbers, then we set it to what? Empty list. So this is an empty list. So now we need to prompt the user to keep entering the numbers. So we're going to say while true, meaning as long as the user is ready, begin entering the numbers. Now we need to prompt the user to begin entering the numbers. So we declare a variable where we're going to store the user input before we then send them inside our list of numbers. So let me call this val, then set it to equal to, let's say, I'll say input, okay. Then I'll prompt the user, val equal to input. Then I'll tell the user enter number or numbers, and then inside the parentheses or down to exit. So I'm telling them to enter numbers or down to exit, or enter something like down to exit, okay. So now with this, the user is going to see this and then they will act upon that by entering some numbers. So now we need to first of all check as to whether the user wants to exit the program or has actually entered the numbers, and we would want to analyze those numbers. So with that, we need to check the down part first. So with that, we're going to say if the value the user enters, which is stored in the val, equal down, then we would want to do what? Break the program now. Don't continue because the user is not ready to continue. The user wants to exit. Then else part here means that maybe the user didn't enter done, but the user has actually entered some numbers. So if the user has actually entered the numbers, so now we need to put the numbers inside this list, okay, the empty list. So to do that, we call the list numbers dot, then we call the append function, then we open the parentheses, then the numbers the user has, or the number the user has entered, which is stored in the variable called val, we need to call that val and then convert those numbers into what? An integer, because we are going to be performing operations on the numbers. Right now they are being taken as strings here, so now we need to convert them into integers here. So that we say int, then val. So we just converted those values back here. So now initially you should be asking yourself, so what are we going to do with the numbers that is going to give to us? We couldn't also convert them into an integer because we are expecting the user to enter Dan, which is a string. So if we declare this or try to format this or convert them into an integer, when the user enters Dan, it's going to crash the program. Okay, and when that happens, you will not like it. So what is going to happen is this: we need to first of all take them as what? Strings. Allow the user to also enter string, and after that, before we send them inside the list, we then go ahead and then convert them into an integer. So here what we are doing is that we are adding the numbers that are entered by the user into our list. So we say numbers.append int val. We just converted those values and then we send them inside the list. So now once they are entered into the list, now we need to check to confirm that is there something actually inside the list. So that we say if, and we call the length function, so len, if length of the numbers, okay, that is a list, if it's greater than 0, meaning there is something actually in the list. Okay, if it's greater than 0, meaning there is something in the list. And if there is something in the list, what we would want to do is we would want to print that something. So that we can say print those numbers. So we want to display the numbers. Okay, so with that we can also say print, then we say the numbers are like this, then comma numbers. Let me just introduce colon here. Or the numbers entered are the numbers entered, so you can say entered are, then this displays the numbers for the user. Then after that we can begin displaying the various analysis. So the first thing is what? To find the minimum. So now with that we can say the print and say the mean, and then okay, we can just do that in one line. Okay, else it just make everything kind of. So let's make things very simple. So now within this same print statement, we would want to print our statement and also find the minimum among the various numbers. So that we're going to say the minimum is, then here, so let's introduce colon here, yes, and then this here, the minimum is this way. Then here what we are going to do is to call the min function here, and then inside the parentheses the numbers like this. So this is going to do what? It's going to print the statement the minimum is, then the mean, then it's going to find the minimum among the list of numbers, then it will display the minimum among them. So we can just copy this one here like this, print or paste this so that we can find the maximum and then the sum. So here we can say the maximum is, instead of minimum, say maximum, then the maximum is, then here it's going to be max, like so. Then here we say the sum is, like so. The sum is, then here we call the sum function. So that will sum the various numbers for us. Okay, then with that we say else. Else part means that the user didn't enter any numbers. So say print no numbers entered. Okay, so with that I can say no numbers entered, like this. Simple as that. So now let's go through our program. Very simple and clean one, of course. So first thing first, we needed list of numbers. So we need to ask the user to keep entering those numbers so that we can store them. So we declared an empty list because it's only list that can store multiple values. So now our list is empty. So now we want to tell the user to keep entering the numbers. So with that, we say while true so that the user can keep entering the numbers. Now we need a place to store the numbers. So we declare a variable called val, then equal to input. Then we tell the user enter numbers or down to exit. So the user can decide to enter down, and when they enter down, we're going to say if value or the value the user has entered is down, then break the program, meaning stop the program, don't continue. Else part means that this condition is false. They didn't enter down. If they didn't enter down, then don't break. Then meaning they've entered some numbers. So if they enter any number, go ahead and then add that number to the list. So to do that, you say numbers.append, but before you add them to the list, go ahead and then convert the value into an integer. So we say numbers.append, then int val. So here the value here is being converted into an integer before it's been added to the list. So once it's added to the list, now we need to check to confirm, is there something in the list? So with that we say if length numbers, the length function here is used to find the number of items in the list. So if length numbers is greater than 0, meaning there is actually something in the list. So if that is the case, then we want to print the items that are in the list. So we say print the numbers entered are, then we have the colon here, then we display the numbers. And then we then print, after displaying the numbers, we want to display the minimum. So we say the minimum is, and we call the min function and pass the numbers. Then print the maximum. The maximum is, and we call the max function, and then we pass in the numbers. Then that will find the maximum among the numbers. And print the sum is, then we call the sum function, and that will sum or add all the numbers and display the sum or the results. Else part means that no numbers or nothing is entered. So we tell the user no numbers entered. Very simple. Now let's run the program. So here let's enter, let's say done like this. So now the program is going to exit and say no numbers entered. So now the program has exited. Okay. So now let's clear this now and let's rerun this program once again. So now what is going to happen is this. Let's enter series of numbers. Let's say 6, press enter. 8, press enter. 25, press enter. 11, press enter. Now let's enter done. So once we enter done, let's run it. So now the program is going to stop there and display the numbers we've entered. We entered 6, 8, 25, 11. So the minimum among them is 6 and the maximum is what? 25. Then the sum is what? 50. Very simple and straightforward for data analysis. So now this is it about this number analysis project. So I believe you've paused the video and then you try your own solution and then you are not comparing it to this one. Make sure the logic matches exactly what the project overview is all about. So see you in the next project and bye.